Hi, today I'm going to talk about using QGIS, Quantum GIS as it used to be more known, which is a geographical information system. A geographical information system allows you to display data upon a mapping background, so you can see spatial variations, things like that. I'm just going to run through some sort of examples of things that you can do. So on screen you'll see I've loaded in the Google aerial map. This is the city of Derby in the Midlands. You can see on it where I'm sort of outlining with my pan cursor the sort of industrial areas, and you can see the residential areas, sort of that sort of darker brown colour, and the lighter colour tends to be the industrial. That's just to give you a rough first exam, and nothing that you can't get from looking on a Google map. However, QGIS is different from looking on a Google map, as you can also look at data. So we'll switch the Google satellite off, and you'll see underneath it we've got the normal sort of street map type Google imagery. We can load in lots of other different mapping types as well. So we'll go back to the satellite for now, and we'll load in. Let's have a look what we've got. So we'll add in a vector layer. Now GIS software tends to deal with two different types of data. You have raster information, which is images, pictures, sort of aerial mapping, photography, that sort of thing. And then you have vectors, which is based around sort of coordinates. And vectors tend to be divided into three main types: point vectors, which is just literally a point; lines, which are a line that can bend and twist and move around; and polygons, which are an enclosed shape. So I'm going to load in to start with the ZoomStack dataset, which is produced by the Ordnance Survey. It's free. I'm going to load in a slightly filtered version that I've created called All Roads. So we'll load that one in, and you will see very quickly we get lots of nice coloured lines on the mapping background, and all of these lines now have data attached to them. That really is the main difference between raster information and vector information, is that there can be allied information with vector information or with vector data. With raster data, it can give you some information, and that's based around a pixel approach. So an individual pixel will have a value, and that value can then be used to be analysed in some way. But as you can see from this image here, you can see where all the roads lie, and all these roads have got information attached to them. So let's have a quick look. So we go to this little button at the top here, this eye, and we can now click on a section of data, say there, and we can see that that's Sir Frank Whittle Road in Derby. It's a primary route, and its number is the A61. So just in case you think that might be a freak, let's have a look at one over here, and that is just a restricted road, so that's a very minor road. Let's have a look at another one. Here it looks like a residential area, Winchester Crescent. So as I say, just a few random things. You've got information attached to that as well. So that's vector data. What you can do with these roads is you can add a style to it. So let's go to properties, and let's put a categorized style on it, and we're going to categorize it by type. And if we do classify, and this has got a bit of data crunching to do now, so there we go. So these are the various categories, and we'll apply that, and it'll just regenerate, and there we go. We've got all lots of different coloured roads around there. And for my work, I've stylised these into a typical AA road map style, which becomes very familiar for people to look at. But for the purpose of this, you can see what happens. It's all classified, and you can see the various different hierarchies of road. So that's sort of one thing that we could show, and we can then switch that off. Another very useful thing that I find very useful are WMS files, and WMS files are a form of raster mapping really, but they're allowed to they overlay as a sheet, if you like, on top of the data that you're displaying and provide you with various different information. So let's have a look at layers. So let's add layer, add a WMS layer, and now I've got a certain library of different things here. So we've got Greenbelt, we've got land registry. So let's have a look at the land registry. So I'll just connect that up. There we go, and we'll add that in. And the beauty of WMS is it's hosted by the people that produce the data. It's constantly up to date, and therefore you're not downloading things. So let's zoom in a little bit. And these are the land registry boundaries. And it's not helpful that it's in black over the aerial mapping, but I think you can just about make that out. So these are individual parcels of land, so you can see sort of individually the extent of ownerships, which is very useful when you're either buying property, selling property, or you're trying to establish, for example, the extent of public highways, which is something I very often have to do. This tends to be a bit of a negative of where the public highway boundaries are. So let's just have a look. So we can see here, and this is probably one of those cases where you can see all the residential land registry entries are booked, and then you're on this side as well. So you see that's a very useful bit of information there. Let's have a look what else we've got. So as well as the data that you can put in, you can then undertake processing on that data. So that's something that we'll do some more exploration of. You can add your own mapping. Say you've got an aerial photograph, or you've got an old map, for example, that you've only got on paper. You can scan that in and use georeferencer. And georeferencer enables you to pick points that are alike on both the source object and the GIS window here, and then it will stretch it and match it to fit. Now, the more points you use, the more accuracy you're going to get. Generally, with QGIS, you've got to have it roughly in the right orientation before you begin. It doesn't like it if you're sort of 90 degrees or 180 degrees out of where it needs to be. So that's a sort of useful tip that I've found out over the years, is to make sure we do that. So a couple of useful plugins really. I've got zoom to postcode, so you put any postcode in and it will zoom straight to it, and that's very handy for finding places very quickly. So let's see what else we've got. So what else can we show you at the moment? So data source manager, again, as I say, this is where all my data, where you can gather all the data from. So we can look now at, this is very useful, and this is a digital terrain model. Wow, it's not working at the moment. Fluvial flooding. So let's have a look at that. So there we go. So I'll just double click on that, add, close. That's added that in now. So we can now look at where the fluvial flood risk is. So let's have a look at, here's the River Derwent corridor. So let's see what this shows us. There we go, that's it. So the problem with WMS data is it sometimes can be quite obliterating of the background, but quickly switching it on and off, you can see where the areas of flood risk are. Another form of data is WFS, which is a little bit more like vector data in the fact that you can click on it and find information from it. So that's a better form. But okay, so it's a very, very brief introduction into some of the things that you can perhaps do with GIS. I've only really shown how to get information in and to display information. What I will do is present some further videos on actually processing data and how you actually can display it. I hope that was useful. Okay, thank you. Bye.